Hi there, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're going to be making blueberry lemon scones with a beautiful lemon drizzle. It is the peak of the summer season here, and we have fresh blueberries that just showed up at the farmer's market. So I thought, it was nice to have a little bowl of berries and cream this morning for my breakfast, but I saved a few and we're going to make these gorgeous bakery style scones. First, we're going to get our dry ingredients ready. So I have 2 cups of flour, 1/3 of a cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 cup of butter that's really cold, and I've cut it into cubes. And then we're going to put that all in one bowl, cut all the butter into the flour and sugar, and cut it together until it's crumbly and coarse. And then I'm going to toss in my blueberries. Just have a look at these babies. Oh, aren't they gorgeous? So I'll be tossing the blueberries in with the flour and butter, and then I'll be whisking together the wet ingredients. And the wet ingredients are an egg, a teaspoon of vanilla, and I have a mixture of 1/4 cup light cream and 1/4 cup plain yogurt. And I've mixed them together ahead of time because the culture in the yogurt will work on the cream and it'll sort of richen it up a little bit. So I've had that sitting here. I should say it's very warm today, and if your kitchen is warm, you should measure out all your ingredients and then stick them in the fridge for a few minutes just to chill them. The colder your ingredients are when you're making scones, the better, especially the butter. When the scones bake, the butter will melt and sort of explode within the layers of flour, and it will create a very flaky texture and the most gorgeous result. Oh, I forgot one ingredient, and that's the zest of a lemon. We're going to put some lemon zest in with the scone mixture. And then when the scones have baked, we're going to be making a beautiful lemon drizzle and also scattering another little bit of lemon zest over the top of everything. And this is optional, but almonds are delicious with lemon and blueberries. So if you have a few sliced almonds in your pantry, I would recommend scattering those over the top of the scones. Anyway, I've talked enough about what we're going to do. How about we just get baking? Okay, so we have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to put that in my bowl. And I have 1/3 of a cup of white sugar. And 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Just going to give that a little zhuzh with my pastry blender. And I have 1/2 cup of butter that's really cold. And what I did, I measured out 1/2 cup of butter, cut it into cubes, and then I put it in this little dish, and then I stashed it in the fridge for another few minutes while I was measuring everything out, just to make sure everything is really cold. It's quite a warm day. So into the flour goes the cold butter. And now I'm just going to cut this into the flour with my pastry blender. And when the butter gets stuck on your pastry blender like that, just scrape it off with a knife. Resist the urge to pick out that butter with your hands because your hands are warm, and you're trying to keep this butter as cold as possible. So just keep blending. This will take 2 or 3 minutes until you have very small pieces of butter and your flour is a mixture of very coarse crumbs. Some people do this in a food processor. I tend to not like doing scones or biscuits in a food processor because I find it grinds up the butter too finely, and then you don't really get as much flakiness. You want a mixture of very small and large pieces of butter. It'll just make a much nicer texture in the finished product. There, I would say that is the consistency we're looking for. So now I'm going to grate in a little bit of lemon zest about a tablespoon. And I have washed this lemon very well. So that's about a tablespoon of lemon zest. And I'm going to stick this lemon in the fridge. We're going to use it, again, we're going to use a little bit more lemon zest and lemon juice when we make the glaze for the baked scones. So I'm just going to stash this away. I'll be right back. And I also measured out a heaping cupful of the blueberries. And again, these are high bush blueberries. They're widely available all year round, but these are local and they were just picked, so they're really nice. What I'm really looking forward to in a couple of weeks are the wild blueberries that we get here. The taste is like nothing else. But I saw these, I wanted to make the scones and have the recipe up on my channel for you. So if you can get your hands on wild blueberries, I would highly recommend using wild blueberries in this recipe. But any old blueberry will do. These are freshly picked from the farm market, and I'm just going to scatter these in and gently toss in this flour mixture. There. Okay, so now I'm going to just prepare the wet ingredients. As I said before, this is a 1/4 cup of light cream and a 1/4 cup of plain yogurt. And I just mixed the two together and I allowed them to sit in the fridge, and the culture of the yogurt will work on the cream and just thicken everything up a little bit. See how that's curdled and sort of made the cream into a bit of a light yogurt. And there's something about the tang of the yogurt that really works nicely with the blueberries and lemon. And I've got a teaspoon of vanilla and an egg. Just give that a little whisk. Wow, that went flying through the air. Did I get ya? And now I'm going to just make a well in the center. Pour in my wet ingredients into the dry. And we're going to just gently take a spatula and fold your dry ingredients into the wet. And this will turn into a very shaggy dough. And you don't want this to be too wet, nor do you want it to be too dry. So just try to use your best instincts. And if it looks like it's a little dry, you can always add a splash more milk. I tend to err on the side of being cautious with my liquids at first because you can always add more, but you can't really take it away. So I'm just going to add a splash more cream, just a touch. That was maybe a couple of tablespoons. There, that's looking very nice. So I'm just going to put a little bit of flour on my board. Just a dusting. Smooth it out with your hand and tip this mixture out onto the flour. There's going to be some dry bits and some wet bits, but we're going to shape it into a disc. And just use your hands to bring this together into a nice disc. Be gentle with it. Use the heel of your hand to just press together any dry bits into the moisture bits and sort of incorporate that. So if you notice that some of your blueberries are sort of grouped together, just pick them out and redistribute them. You want them to be evenly placed throughout the dough. So you want to press this out into a disc that's about 8 or 9 inches in diameter around, and also about an inch thick. If your hands get sticky, just get some of that flour rub your hands together, and then that should take care of that. And if you have any cracks, just kind of pat them back together. And when I say 8 or 9 inches around, you know, I'm not getting out a tape measure or anything, or a ruler. I'm just eyeballing it, but if you want to be a little more precise, you can. I find the most important thing is the thickness. It's about, I don't know, would you say that's an inch thick? And I have prepared a couple of baking sheets. You could do 1 large baking sheet, or what I have here are 2 baking sheets that I've lined with parchment paper. And we're going to cut this disc into 8 equal wedges. So find your halfway point that way. Find your halfway point. Cut it into quarters. And then if you have one of these bench scrapers, they're really helpful in transferring these to your baking sheet. So 4 per sheet, because I'm using small sheets. Try not to get that excess flour from your board. I'll just scrape that away. I'll put this over here. And these are going to puff up when they bake in the oven, so give them lots of space to grow. If any of them stick together when you're transferring them to your baking sheets, just give them another little cut. And you may have noticed I didn't say to preheat your oven in the beginning, because I'm going to freeze these for a few minutes. The kitchen is quite warm. As we've worked, the ingredients have warmed up, and these will create a much better texture when they're baked if everything is super cold. So I'm going to stick these in the freezer for at least 20 minutes, and then I'm going to preheat my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we'll bake them. But first I'm just going to give them a little break in the freezer, and I'll clean up my kitchen, and then I'll turn my oven on. The longer these can sit in the freezer, the better, especially when it's a very hot summer day. I have the oven preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and while that was happening, I had my cut scones just stashed away in the freezer. They're not frozen, but they're firmer than they were. This step is entirely optional, but I think it makes it kind of nice. I have just a little bit of light cream in a bowl, and I'm just going to gently splash a little bit. I should use a pastry brush, but for some reason I cannot find my pastry brush. I guess I should break down and buy one. So I'm just going to lightly smear the tops of these with a little light cream. And this is just going to give a little shine to the tops of the scones. How do you say scone? Is it scone? Is it scone? Is it Scottish like scone? I guess no matter what you say, it's going to be tasty. And I have a few sliced almonds, and I'm going to just sprinkle a few of those over the top of each. Again, this is not necessary, but I like to gild the lily. You don't need many, just a few to add some nice crunch. There. And finally, just a little bit of sugar sprinkled over the top. And the higher you go with the sugar, the more evenly distributed it will be. Just a sprinkle. This will add a nice little sweet crunch as well. That was about 1.5 teaspoons of sugar, not very much. Okay, now I'm going to slide these into my preheated oven. And these will take about 18 to 25 minutes to bake. I start checking things at 18 minutes. Okay, I think we're done. Let's just open the oven door and see what these little babies look like. Oh yeah, really nice. So these have been in here for about 22 minutes. They're nicely puffed up and golden. Yeah, I think they're perfect. So they're going to be nice and golden on the bottom. I'm just going to let them cool on the pans for a few minutes while I make the lemon drizzle. I have half a cup of powdered icing sugar, and I'm just going to add enough freshly squeezed lemon juice to make a nice runny icing. So this is the lemon that we zested earlier, and I'm going to take the rest of that zest off and just set it to one side, and then I'll juice the lemon. Take off a little bit of that lemon zest. Just keep turning it as you grate the zest off, because you don't want the white pith that is bitter. So just keep turning it until you find a spot where you haven't grated. And I think that's all we're going to get out of that lemon. So I'll just put this to one side. It smells so good. The combination of blueberry and lemon is fantastic. So we've got a little bit of lemon zest in the scones themselves, and then the drizzle will have a lemon flavor from the lemon juice. And then we're also going to put freshly grated zest on top of the drizzle. I'm just going to dribble this in here and stir. And I'm just eyeballing it. There's, other than the half cup of icing sugar, I'm just going by eye to see how much lemon juice I need to make a nice runny drizzle that will glaze the scones. That's looking pretty good. I haven't used the entire half of that lemon. There's still lemon juice in there, and I'll use this lemon for something else. Stir that nicely together until all the powdered sugar has dissolved and it's smooth and no longer lumpy. That's the consistency you're looking for. It's not a lot of icing, it's just to give a nice little sweet, tangy glaze over the top. And I have a rack here. Now, I have cast iron fingers. You may want to use a spatula to get these off. See the nice golden bottoms? Get the scones on a little rack so they can finish cooling. And this will hopefully catch most of the drizzle. Put these all on one rack now, I think. Or am I chancing it? I sort of want to catch the drizzle, or as much as I can, when I glaze these scones. I just have the pan and the used parchment paper underneath to catch the glaze. Okay, so these are still quite warm. But I think it's nice to put the drizzle on while they are still a bit warm. It'll help the drizzle to spread a little bit. You could certainly do this after they're completely cool. It's entirely up to you. So I'm just doing a little drizzle over each one. This isn't a heavy icing, it's just a little touch of sweet and tangy topping. Just a little spoonful over each one. Going back and forth to make a nice design. And you can see why I put the the pan and the parchment paper underneath to catch the drips. And then when you're done, all those drips, you can just gather up the parchment paper and throw it away. Because these scones are still quite warm from the oven, you can see how the glaze has just melted into the tops. When that sets, it's going to be a nice crackly topping. If you had let the scones cool completely, the drizzle would remain more distinct. It would just sit on the top. Either way is fine. I kind of like it this way. I've also done it the other way where the scones are completely cool and then you have the distinct lines of drizzle. And now we're going to take our lemon zest before that drizzle dries, and just from a height we're going to scatter it, hoping to get some of it on each scone. It's not a lot, it's just a little bit. I think they're rather pretty. Lemon blueberry scones with lemon drizzle, sliced almonds, lemon zest, a perfect summer treat when blueberries are freshly picked. What do you say we give them a taste? Well, I brewed a lovely pot of tea. I thought it was only fitting to have a nice cup of tea with these beautiful blueberry lemon scones. Aren't those nice? The beautiful blueberries that have burst inside, so everything is moist and juicy, and the pastry is very flaky and soft. These would be perfect for breakfast or afternoon tea, or if you're having friends over for a cup of coffee. What a treat. Nova Scotia blueberries. You can't beat them. Happy summer. Thanks for watching.